There's no magic boxes. You can't just sign a document and everything's going to be magically okay. You actually have to do the work. And part of doing the work is making sure that you're following the agreement and going along with it and not relenting on a whole bunch of small points until it gets big. Hi, Jeff Versace, the Plain English Attorney, and welcome to the video. Today, we are going to talk about why prenups fail. Now, this might seem like a little bit of a departure from what we're usually doing with estate planning, Medicaid planning, and all that kind of strategic plan ahead so that you don't end up with a mess later and end up in court. But look, that's exactly what we're talking about here when putting together a prenup. Now, the reason I'm doing this and the reason I actually wrote my book, The Divorce Firewall Strategy, which will be rebranded soon as The Ultimate Prenup, is because a lot of my clients had come to me and they were talking about their kids having issues in their own marriages, or even better, they're coming to me and saying, "Hey, okay, look, I know we've tried to get our kids involved with the estate right up front. They turned 18. We had you go ahead and put together powers of attorney. And now several years have gone by. They're talking about getting married. We think they need a prenup because we need to protect not just them, what we're leaving them, and what could potentially happen. We want to make sure that they are as protected as possible getting a prenup." Now, here's the thing.
If you think it's important for educational videos like this to get out there, then please help us out by subscribing to the channel.
It's not just a legal document. This whole thing is kind of like a process, and there are multiple parts if you really, really, really want to sew things up. And this leads to a lot of yelling and screaming on the internet whenever this comes up. "Oh, I got raked over the coals in the divorce, and I thought I had a prenup. And this way, these prenups don't work. They don't work." Well, okay, there are 7 reasons we've identified exactly why these prenups fail, and it's because they're not really putting in the work. So let's get right in now to the 7 big reasons that prenups fail. And the top one, the one that's really just it's showing that there's dishonesty from the beginning, it's quote fraud. You're not fully giving all of the information on all of your assets. This is you can't hide assets and go, "Well, okay, no, I'm not going to tell them about this account. I'm not going to tell them about this investment." No, it all needs to be disclosed. If you're going to get married, you need to disclose all of this stuff, and here's how this works. Or, and this is another part of the prenup that you could put in, here's everything that's relevant, and we're each deciding that nothing else needs to be disclosed. Now, it's always going to come out better if it ever has to get into court that you are disclosing everything. Now, when I talk about in the divorce firewall strategy, again, soon to be rebranded the ultimate prenup, we're talking about putting together a domestic asset protection trust for your separate property. So, something that's kind of in between there, unless it's insisted on and you agree to it, you don't have to disclose everything that's in the trust. You have to disclose here's what the trust is and perhaps what's the value. You don't really have to necessarily get into what is inside the trust, but you're disclosing it. Again, these prenups that leave out stuff and you're kind of hiding and concealing, it's dishonesty. That's just going to give a judge a reason to throw that out. So that's the first big one, is the fraudulent representation. All right, what's another one? And this is, again, people yelling and screaming, "These prenups don't work, these prenups don't work." They're kind of springing this on the potential spouse, that husband or bride to be um, just a month or so or less, a couple of weeks before the wedding. Okay, if you're just hey, I want a prenup. Well, we're getting married in 2 weeks. We've got the caterer, we've got all this stuff, I've got all this other. Look, no, we're not going to get married unless you sign this. There's a word for that: duress. And believe me, in the divorce proceeding, that word duress is going to come out as the second you're trying to put forward that premarital agreement. Ha ha, look, we had a prenup, we had a pre. No, no. And again, this is springing it early. You know, it's not springing it on them if it's early. It's springing it if it's in the midst of all of the wedding planning and you're just like a short time away. What is the kind of best time? Look, if you can do it 6 months ahead of time or even 4 months, you start getting closer to that 2 month or 1 month mark. Oh, no, no. The argument for duress goes up the closer to the wedding that this prenup is signed. So you don't want this duress argument. So again, the people yelling and screaming that, oh, prenups don't work, are usually the ones downloading it, filling it out with crayon and giving it to them, a week before the wedding. Hey, you better sign this or we're not getting married. No, that's duress. All right. So what's third reason? A third reason that prenups fail is when there's really disparate financial positions, and the person who is really on top with all, the one who has the finances, who has the income, and it looks like they're not really leaving anything for the other person. Again, it's duress, because now they can argue the duress is, well, okay, I during the relationship I became very dependent on them. Look how much more income they had, and they were threatening to take it away. And the prenup basically said, I get nothing. Well, okay. If it was, if that's the only thing, okay, that again, that prenup might not get thrown out, but it's an additional thing. If it was the disparate position not too long before the wedding, and a lot of the other terms were very unreasonable, okay, they get thrown out. If that's the only thing, maybe, maybe not. But then you have to actually follow the good guidelines and rules for putting it together the right way, which we're going to get to at the end. All right. So, what is the fourth reason? When terms are vague or harsh. If you just put together this prenup, again, download it, fill it out with crayon, here, sign this, and it's this very, very simple thing that doesn't really spell it out, and it's saying, if we get divorced, you get nothing of mine. Okay, that's just so nebulous. Now, if on the other hand, it's done well in advance, both of you have attorneys, you walk through it, and here's this account that I have, this account I have, this is the account I have, this is the account I have, and okay, if we end up breaking up in the marriage, uh, there's going to be X dollar of support per month for 12 months or 24 months. And okay, that's not harsh, but it's specific. That's the thing, is it's very specific. It's not vague. So you're not just springing something on and it's, oh, you get nothing. This is something you really should be spending your time and spending some money on, with both of you getting these attorneys to put this together and be as thorough as you want to be and need to be. Right. So, what's the fifth reason that prenups get thrown out? You're not following the other terms that are listed in the prenup. So, if the idea is, okay, we're getting married, it's going to be a 60-40 split of expenses, and they're going to keep these separate accounts, and these other assets are going to remain separate. And here's what's going to happen in the relationship. And then all of these other things slowly drift off. And it's like, well, okay, she changed jobs and now she's making less money because she wanted to. And so she's only contributing 10% and not the 40%. And it's not being called on, or the agreement revised to reflect that. And it's, oh, well, here's another one. And this is a big one. In the prenups, you put that you're never going to ask the other to not work. And then you do ask them to not work. Okay, yes, stay. And this is typically the much higher earner. And it's usually the husband at that point for a wife saying, my wife can stay at home and it's a point of pride and they don't have to work. And so they tell them, even though the prenup said, no, 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 we're never going to ask them to not work. And then it heads to divorce. And, the wife at that point is rightly saying, well, look, I quit my job. I quit my career. I haven't worked for the last 4 years because he asked me to. Well, we've got a prenup and it says that. No, if you didn't follow all of these other terms, how can you really expect a judge to just say, nope, you're going to have to follow this? And why didn't you contribute 40%? Well, because he asked me not to. Those terms also have to be followed and enforced along the way. Now, this is something that's going to be a common phrase as we talk more about this with the ultimate prenup and how everything works. Look, there's no magic boxes. You can't just sign a document and everything's going to be magically okay. You actually have to do the work, and part of doing the work is making sure that you're following the agreement and going along with it, and not relenting on a whole bunch of small points until it gets big. You have to stick to that agreement. Again, this is your strategic plan for the marriage. And if you're just throwing the whole thing out according to the strategic plan during the marriage, don't expect a judge to enforce the prenup at the end when it's coming to a divorce. It's just not going to work that way. All right. So what do we have for the sixth one? And this is a big one. It's almost an automatic claim of duress. It's if you don't both have attorneys. So, in other words, you've got your attorney, they've got their attorney, and you're coming together and you're hashing out this agreement, this strategic plan, and here's how everything's going to go. And so you're each represented by counsel. You don't get to say at the end of the day, oh, well, I just didn't know, or I was under duress, or they were taking advantage of me. No, you had an attorney, you worked on it, and you came through with it, and you signed it, and you followed it. How can you argue that the prenup gets thrown out if you've done all of those things? Again, you've done the work, you've done it the right way, and not just downloaded something and filled it out with crayon. And the last one, this is also critical, and this is where most people fail. You have to have this looked at and revised every 3 to 5 years. You have to go through it because, look, things change. Emotionally and feeling wise, things change. Financially, things change. Circumstances change. And you need to update and revise this agreement. Again, each of you getting your attorneys and hashing things out. Now, as I'm recording this, it's only about a month or two after the former president, Donald Trump, and Melania, his wife, renegotiated their premarital agreement. This is what happens. So the circumstances changed, and there was this planned revision. I don't know exactly what the timeline was, but look, like I said, 3 to 5 years. It was probably somewhere around a 5 year mark that this happened. And I'm sure there were negotiations about when she's required to appear with him and do these things as part of that strategic plan for the marriage. And here's the type of support, and here's what's going to happen. And I'm pretty sure also it's almost guaranteed that in there he's legally obligated to leave some kind of percentage of the estate, not just to Melania, but also to their mutual son Baron. So it's all hashed out, but it gets revised over time. I don't know exactly how long they've been married, but I very much doubt that this was the only revision. So that they ended up long ago having a premarital agreement before they got married, and it's been revised several times. Again, most recently, just a few months ago from the date I'm recording this. So you do need to update it. And there's something, and please go ahead and put in the comments if you're a legal person and you understand this. I heard somewhere that there are some states that after 10 years, either the prenup's thrown out or it's presumed bad at that point. Okay, if you're living in a state like that, then it's necessary that at least every 10 years you're updating it. But really, again, every 3 to 5 years, things get updated. So those are the 7 reasons why prenups fail. And it's because they're not actually doing the work to make it happen the right way. I've said it before. Let me explain it a little more. There are no magic boxes. You can't just sign a document and everything magically works. You actually have to do the work of following the agreement, making sure that everything's titled the right way. You can't also drift into this, like I said, with not following the other terms. Well, okay, if I'm going to take my joint money, I'm sorry, my individual money and buy it in another house and make it joint, and then expect that if there's a divorce that I'm going to get the whole house back because it came from my money when I retitled it jointly. It just doesn't work. You got to follow the actual agreement and do the work. So, like I mentioned before, and I keep getting told, you just need to keep plugging the book. We currently have the divorce firewall strategy that's going to be rebranded to the Ultimate Prenup. If you go to ultimateprenup.com, you're going to end up getting a link to the book in one fashion or another. We're still in the process of creating the website around the whole Ultimate Prenup. So there's going to also be a course. So please go ahead and do that. And if you can, please look, you've gotten this far, hit the like and subscribe button. And if you want to support our work, join and become a member. We've got a lot of different perks in there, including part of it being a monthly member gets you an exclusive live stream access. So, as I always tell my clients, please stay safe, plan ahead, and enjoy life. And whatever you do, make it a great day.